your colors look muddy, and I'm going to show you why and how to fix that in just a few simple steps. So to start off, we'll make two simple circles. I'll be using Procreate on the iPad, and I will be using only the round brush and the smudge tool. And let's just go ahead and pick orange, just to keep things simple. And on the left, I will show you what most beginner artists do. And on the right, I will show you the proper method to actually shade in your colors. So to paint within the lines, we're going to create a new layer on top and click on clipping mask. So everything that we paint will just be within the circle. For most beginners, when they're painting their shadows, they tend to stick to the same color and just move it a little bit darker for the shadow, which is going to make the overall painting itself actually look way more muddy than it should, and the colors will not pop at all. Sometimes we'll even use pure black to emphasize the darkest value of the shadow, which if you've ever been to an art class, your teacher will always tell you, do not use pure black. It's going to make your painting look muddy. General rule of thumb, you're only going to be using black for the sketch. Unless you're going for a very specific art style, don't use pure black for anything on your painting. So now clicking on the smudge tool here, another mistake beginner artists tend to make is they'll press too hard when they're smudging. Doing this will not get you the soft blend that you're looking for. Instead, what you want to do is lightly with your pen, tap against the edge of the shadow here to get that smooth transition. And you're going to do this for each of the hard edges of the shadows that you see here, just to make them softer and they can all blend together. Another mistake is using pure white for the highlights. That is a big no-no. The lighting is going to should have color as well as the shadow. And in most environments, depending on what it is, the lighting will reflect whatever your subject or object is in that environment. So the shadow is going to have color, so the highlight should have some type of color added to it as well. Again, you do not want to use pure white for the highlight, and you also don't want to overblend the highlight either. You want to leave some hard edges so it's a little bit easier to see the highlight, and as well, for most cases, there's always going to be a hard edge on the highlight somewhere along the side of it. So let's go ahead and jump into the other example, the correct method that you should be using. We're going to just color drop, and the way that I did that is just put down one finger on the screen and tap and hold so I can get the base color again equipped on my brush here. You can also see it in the history at the bottom. If you don't want to color drop, the color will be in your history. So let's get into the shadows. We're actually going to change the hue slightly closer to the red since we're using orange, and also make it more saturated as well. The reason why we're changing the hue and making the color more saturated is so that it actually pops out more, right? Because as you can see in the first example, the colors look super faded, super muddy. There really wasn't a whole lot going on there. But when you change the hue, and in this case, like I said, since we're using orange, it's going to be closer to red since red is darker, and making the shadow color itself more saturated. Doing those two things alone is going to make your color stand out and pop a lot more. And obviously, we're still moving the color downwards to the darker value on the color wheel here. Again, not using pure black. Do not use pure black. It will make your colors look muddy and it will not blend well together. Black is just a very intense color and it's very hard to blend with. Going back to the smudge tool here, again, we're just lightly tapping against the edge of these shadows here. We're not even done blending all the way yet, and as you can already see, the overall color of the shadow looks a lot better than the example on the left here. And again, the reason is because instead of just sticking to one color and just making the value darker, we actually change the hue and increase the saturation so we can make the overall color of the shadow pop out a lot more. So moving on to the highlight, we're gonna actually move up on the hue towards the yellow since we're using orange in this case. Again, just using the color drop tool so I can get the base color back, and it'll make it easier to move on the color wheel so I can move the hue towards the yellow, which is going to be used for our highlight. The reason why we're using yellow is because it's a lighter color than orange. And we want the highlight to again be a little bit more saturated, not using pure white, but a little bit on the more saturated side. Because again, in most cases, light is going to be reflected on the environment the subject or object is in, so it's going to have some type of color. It's not just going to be pure white. And I just moved my value of the color slightly up because again, this is for the highlight and we want the highlight to be lighter than the base color. So even though I didn't use pure white for the highlight, you can still clearly see that the yellow still looks lighter than the orange base color. And again, we're just going to lightly blend on the edge. We're not going to blend the entire highlight. We want to keep some hard edges, again, just to emphasize the difference between the base color and the actual color of the highlight. It'll make it a little bit easier to see. And in most cases, like I mentioned earlier, there's going to be some form of hard edge on the highlight. So there you have it. You can clearly see the difference in the two colors that we have here up on the screen. Again, just to recap, on the left, all we did was change the value of the color, not changing the hue at all. And that's what made the colors look muddy. And on the right, we changed the hue and the saturations to make the color pop. I will make a part 3 for the Drawing for Dummies series very soon, so stay tuned for that, and I will see you guys next time.